working to build a map of the entire land surface of the Earth, 150 plus million square kilometers at extreme detail. And we're doing it with LiDAR. There are no other satellites that are commercially out there mapping with LiDAR. And that data is used by academics, by scientists, by commercial organizations, by governments to really understand the world in ways that aren't possible today with optical imagery or radar imagery. All of those have their place and they all have great use cases. And we love those two types of satellite data. But the types of things that you can do with extremely high accuracy and precision that you get with LiDAR, one of the hallmarks of LiDAR is that you can see through a canopy of trees when you've got the right intensity, with the right amount of light that you can collect back. And so imagine in the world of understanding how much carbon exists within a forest. If you're looking at it with optical or radar imagery, you're really looking at the canopy, like at large, this big canopy, and you have to do a lot of estimations. But with LiDAR, you can really measure what's there because you can see with laser point accuracy the top of the tree, which they call the crown. You can see the breadth of the tree to pretty high accuracy. And then the laser light will actually shoot between the leaves and go through the canopy and hit the ground. And so now you've got a measurement to the ground and the crown of the tree, and you can see how tall it is. You can see how broad it is, measure individual trees. And so now if you can measure all of the individual trees within a forest, you suddenly know length, width, and height. So you know volume of how much carbon is actually there. And so that's a really unique use case that comes with LiDAR.
That's why when I came across your website first, I was kind of getting interested in space, and I just started reading Payload, the space newsletter.
Right.
And I came across your site and I was just like, that mission is unreal. And I started thinking about what I would use it for. I saw you put a tweet out asking someone like for people's use cases. Did you get any good replies?
Yeah. I think some of the replies that we get out there are pretty far-fetched and some of them are super practical. But I think the ones that really make magic happen are the far-fetched ideas, because the really unique thing about the Nuview satellite constellation that we're building and having never been done before is that the scale of data available just hasn't been there. Typically, people have used airplanes to map, maybe hundreds of square kilometers in a weekly period. But with our constellation, we'll be able to map millions of square kilometers in a week, which means, it's country level coverage in a really short amount of time. And so if we can produce that type of data, the type of things that I think our users are going to discover with it, I think it's going to be a complete change in what's possible. So the far-fetched ideas, we get ideas around bathymetry, which is the ability to measure through water up to like 20 or 30 meters deep. We're not actually building our constellation to do that, but that's a commercial decision. It's not that it's not a possibility, right? And so we get ideas around bathymetry and looking at structures underwater that are kind of near shore. Agriculture. I mean, imagine some of the ideas that we got around agriculture. We already had a lot of these ideas, but when you hear the users on the ground saying how they want to use it, it really opens things up. And you can understand erosion to a pretty exquisite detail. But one of the things I'm excited about the possibility of, one of the ideas around looking at areas that are crops. So think about corn in the US or maize and sugarcane. These are really tall crops. And the height of these crops are extremely correlated. So the amount of biomass within that crop is extremely correlated to how much yield there's going to be. So how much crop yield or how much product is coming out of that field. And with the type of imagery that exists today, you can see the length and width of that field and what the health of the top of the canopy looks like. But what if you could see the height of that crop and you can see the breadth of the field and the length of the field? Suddenly, you know really well how much biomass is in that field. And if it's sugarcane, like, a pretty good accurate measure of how much sugarcane or sugar will be produced by that field. And the same with corn. And so these types of really exciting ideas that we've had these ideas, it's how we started the concept, but to hear the really fine detail from the users on the ground is really energizing.
I think it's an incredible business because you're essentially just providing a new layer of knowledge to the human race. And it's a very, very thick layer of knowledge. It's not like a niche thing. It's huge. And people will be
Right.
able to build using your data and unlock new business models, solve more of society's challenges. So it's really like an incredible business in that sense.
Yeah, I think one of the most exciting use cases, it was actually really rudimentary and really foundational. We like to think of ourselves in most cases as a foundational data set. It's a data set that all other data sets build on top of. And I'd been talking to a potential investor that was excited about us, and he went away to a conference, and he actually went to a private island of a really well-known aerospace music entrepreneur. It wouldn't take long for the group to guess who that is, but he met some people there. And when he came back, he said, Clint, I met this lady and she's in charge of mapping in her country. It's a small country. And the country had never had a national mapping initiative before. And one of the things I learned from her is that a solution like yours could mean the difference between whether people eat or they don't eat. And like that was so impactful on me, but it had really energized him. And he said, "Look, I understand the value of this." The person was also kind of an expert in that technology, but they said, "I'm in. Like I see it, I'm in." And I think what we've seen so far is when, potential investors talk to the user community of our data or they talk to customers, like it moves super fast, but the use cases are extremely impactful.
More people need to hear this because in my opinion, there's way too many companies that get set up and it's like a B2B software company and it
Right.
improves like an accounting workflow. And yeah, that's good to improve profitability a little bit for companies, but I hope more people hear stories like this. Like, who imagines that you could eventually put a constellation of satellites in space and map the whole Earth out?